This is the story of one of the strongest women in the world who vanished without a trace. Back in 2004, a very fit blonde bombshell appeared on the cover of Flex magazine. Her name was Krista Webster, and she was America's first ever female weightlifter. But her life took a dark turn when she suddenly disappeared without a trace. So how did this successful athlete vanish into thin air? And why has nobody been able to find her since? But before we jump into the investigation, let's take a look at how Krista got to this point. Krista was always passionate about sports. She grew up playing softball, soccer, and volleyball, but she didn't really get into weightlifting until her early 20s. At the age of 20, she began working at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, and that's where everything changed for her. The gym was filled with the best athletes from all over the world, which inspired Krista to begin training like them. However, it wasn't easy for her. When she first started, she couldn't lift nearly as much as the guys. But even though she was much smaller than her peers, she was determined to succeed. So she trained day in and day out. And eventually she became the strongest woman in the gym. In fact, she got so good that she caught the eye of the National Physique Committee. They invited her to compete in a number of events, including the NPC Team Universe Championships. Unfortunately, she lost every time because she was too nervous. But she didn't let that discourage her. She just kept training harder and harder. Finally, in 2003, all of her hard work paid off. She won her first competition, which qualified her for the IFP, which is the highest honor an athlete can achieve. Later that year, she would appear on the cover of Flex magazine, making her one of the most famous female bodybuilders in the world. But something else was happening behind the scenes. Krista had met a man named Josh Barnett. He was a professional mixed martial artist, but he quickly fell in love with Krista and they soon got married. After getting married, they moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, where Josh could pursue his MMA career. Although Krista also had opportunities to compete, she decided to stay home and support her husband. But things weren't as happy as they seemed. People reported seeing Krista and Josh arguing in public all the time. They would yell at each other and sometimes even get physical. So everyone thought that their marriage was a total disaster. But no one knew the truth. Krista was actually the one who was physically abusing Josh. Even though he was a professional fighter, he was no match for Krista's strength. She would beat him up all the time. But Josh was too embarrassed to tell anyone what was going on. He didn't want people to know that he was being dominated by a woman. So he just kept suffering in silence. At some point, Josh snapped. He told his wife that he was going to leave her. But Krista didn't take this very well. She threatened to kill him if he left her. So Josh called the cops on her. But when officers arrived at the scene, she denied everything. She claimed that she was the one who had been abused all along. This caused police to arrest Josh and take him away. But later, they would drop all charges against him when they found out that he had a history of domestic violence. So once again, Krista was free, but this didn't last long. A few months later, she completely disappeared. When Josh woke up in the morning, he noticed that Krista was missing. She had left behind a note that said, "Don't look for me." But that wasn't the only thing that was strange. Their bedroom window was wide open, but the screen door was intact. So someone must have cut the window open from the inside. But why? Josh had no idea. So he contacted the police and told them what happened. He explained that his wife was depressed, so he was worried that she might have committed suicide. But despite launching a massive investigation, police were unable to find Krista. They never recovered her body and they never received any ransom demands. So it was unclear what exactly had happened to her. As you can imagine, this devastated Josh. He went around searching for her for weeks, but she was nowhere to be found. Eventually, he gave up hope and went back to his normal life, but he still thinks about her sometimes. To this day, he has no idea what happened to her and neither does anyone else. Now, you may be wondering why Krista suddenly disappeared after all those years of hard work. Well, the answer is simple. She was bored. All of her life, Krista had been told that she was too strong for a woman, and she believed that to be true. But when she finally achieved success, she realized that there was nothing left for her in weightlifting. She had accomplished everything that she had set out to do, so she simply walked away. But she didn't just walk away from weightlifting, she also walked away from her husband. She was tired of his constant complaining and she didn't feel that he was supportive enough. Plus, she was sick of pretending to be the victim. Every time she was arrested, she had to make herself look weak and helpless. But in reality, she was the one who was abusing Josh. But deep down, she was still a kind person. That's why she left him a note saying not to look for her. She didn't want him to waste his time searching when he could be spending it with someone better. Some people believe that Krista Webster's disappearance is one of the greatest mysteries of our time, but I don't think that's true. She simply got bored with her life and decided to move on. But there are many other female athletes who are worth talking about. So stay tuned for more videos. We'll start with this woman who shattered records and then vanished. Mary Lou Retton was one of the biggest stars of the 1980s. She was an American gymnast who won gold medals for her floor exercise and team competition. She also won silver for the uneven bars. But when Mary Lou retired, she seemed to disappear. In fact, she only made a couple of public appearances. So why did she quit gymnastics and why did she keep a low profile? Well, the answer is quite simple. She didn't enjoy the spotlight and she was tired of practicing all the time. Also, she suffered from body dysmorphia. She felt that she was overweight, and after retiring, she began gaining even more weight. She was arguably the greatest female basketball player in the world. She averaged 25 points and 7 rebounds per game during her college career. The entire country mourned the loss of such a promising young athlete. But the details surrounding her death were a bit strange. At the time, Cheryl was dating a famous NFL player named, but while they were on vacation in Hawaii, Cheryl drowned. Some people believe that she was actually pushed into the water, but there's no evidence to support this theory. She was arguably the greatest female athlete of the 20th century. She excelled at everything she tried. She played baseball, golf, tennis, basketball, and track and field. But she wasn't always celebrated for her accomplishments. In fact, during the Great Depression, she was considered a threat to national security. Back in 1932, she competed in the Olympics and won 3 gold medals, 2 silvers, and 1 bronze. But during World War II, the U.S. government told her to stop competing against men. They were afraid that she was encouraging women to become too independent. So she spent most of the war working in a factory. She competed in the 1948 Olympics, but she was forced to switch to women's events. But even there, she continued to excel. She won 10 amateur golf tournaments and 3 LGA events.